In this video, I share with you a Kickstarter preview of the Black Coast Kickstarter. But before we get into today's video, I just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of June of 2023, we have two $25 credits from LV427. They make sci-fi terrain and recently have come out a whole new line that works really well with aliens. Also, all my viewers can get a 20% off code if you use that. Use the links below in the video descriptions. We also have two all-in pledges for the Zectonium Prison Mines Kickstarter. We have two pledges for the Bleak Elf Bastion that's coming up. We have two pledges for the STL Miniatures The Frost City Kickstarter that's going on right now. We have a Gweik 10-watt diode laser. We have $100 going towards a crowdfunding campaign, which my Patreon supporters are currently voting upon. And then finally, two all-in pledges for this Kickstarter, the Black Coast Citadel. Use the link below to go to my Patreon page to see the full list of gratitude gifts that Bob is going to be choosing one of you to be receiving at the end of this month. Also, you can support the channel by purchasing any of my merch that is at the bottom of this video. So Matthew did reach out to me with his next Kickstarter. I've done a number of videos for him, the 3D terrain that he produces. One of the things that's unique about DecoQuest is that it has a massive amount of detail. So for example, on this tower, which is a very small portion of all of the towers and gates that you get from this Kickstarter, you just see massive amounts of detail that makes this look like genuine rock. Now, I print everything on my FDM printer at 0.2 millimeter height, which is the perfect amount of speed and yet detail that can be seen here. So I think all of the little details on his STL files make his terrain super unique. Now, he's also produced some sci-fi files as well, but in particular, I really do like his fantasy files the most. I have painted this in different colors than I typically do. Normally, I paint everything in gray, but this time around, I decided to go ahead and try a tan, a light tan, and I just spray painted everything this caramel color and then just dry brushed with craft paint. I didn't provide a painting tutorial, but for the most part, this was relatively quick and easy to do just because there's so much detail that is found on his models. It looks like actual stone when you look at it here. Now there is a space, I did not print out the bridge that does slot in right here, but this is just to give you an example of how large the entire system is going to be, and just to give you a small sampling of the amount of detail that's found in these models. So I think this tower looks fantastic, and if I did have the time and energy, I would print out the rest of it, but I just think all of the details that Matthew provides with his STL files is fantastic. And because of all those details, it does take quite a while to upload those files and to slice them, just because of all of the amount of information that's found in here. But let's go ahead and go over to the computer where I can walk you through the campaign. Now, it is a preview page, so there might be some changes, but it is supposed to launch around June 12th or so this next week. So you'll get a preview and hit the notify you at the moment of launch so that you can jump in right away. And let's go ahead and check out the various pledges that you can make. So there is an early bird, so make sure you do hit that notify me on launch button so that you can jump in on the early bird, because you're going to have a €10 savings, which is pretty significant for the early bird, and that is the all-in. And then there's a second wave of early birds, which jumps it up to €35. And then the final cost for those that missed the early birds is going to be €38. I think that's 40 some dollars US. So the more early that you can pledge, the more that you're going to be able to save. And then obviously there are merchant pledges as well. So let's go ahead and check out what the content of the page is so far. And again, just a quick reminder, this is a preview page, so things might change at the point of actual launch. So This continues to follow the same pattern that Mathieu creates these incredibly detailed files, but also large fortresses as well. And these are sort of the different layouts and builds, and he does make it so that all the files can be printed on your standard Ender build plate or Prusa build plate. I think 100 centimeters is a meter, so this is pretty much 3 feet wide. So this is the piece that I printed out, and as I mentioned before, there was a slot down at the bottom for this bridge piece to attach it to the rest of the fortress over here. This shows you sort of the internals and what that looks like. And there's just a ton of space to be able to play on the inside. Each of the levels is pretty tall. So you're going to be able to lift off a lot of these levels to be able to access it internally. And again, I think the style is fairly unique. Has sort of like a barbarian look to it. It is called the Black Coast Citadel. And then on the inside you have some furniture that's available. And then here's an example of it being 3D printed. He also printed it at 0.2 millimeter height. And I did not actually have to use any supports for any of these prints, which is typical of his files. He makes it supportless, and I had no failures. Here are various stretch goals that will be unlocking during the campaign. Oh yeah, here he says the movie Sword and Sorcery inspiration, like Conan the Barbarian and other movies like that. And then if you wanted here, you can add on some of his previous Kickstarters. So again, link in the descriptions below to go to his page on My Mini Factory. I also did a video for the Highlands Rebellion Kickstarter that he had a while back. So if you wanted to add any of these, looks like you will be able to include those as add-ons. This is the sci-fi terrain that I was mentioning before. Again, I made a video for that as well, but a lot of different options. What's cool about this is that it has LED lights that can be incorporated into these buildings. And then the Grim Fortress was actually his very first Kickstarter, and that was the one that I printed out this massive tower, and that was one of the gratitude gifts that was given away. So as I mentioned before, he just includes a ton of detail in all of his builds, and I think it looks pretty incredible. You can purchase these individually. So again, My Mini Factory, you're able to buy the buildings or pieces that you want, but there's just a lot going on. And you can test if you want to download. And then I think he is just giving some tips, settings to use when you are 3D printing. So that's pretty much it. So there you have it. Hopefully this video was helpful for you in deciding whether or not these files are something that you're interested in. Again, use the link below to be notified of this Kickstarter once it launches, and also use the link to go to my Patreon page where you might be able to receive one of the all-in pledges. Hopefully Bob will be picking you. It only takes $1 to become a Patreon supporter, and that gives you a chance in being picked. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Otherwise, happy printing, happy gaming. We'll see you next time.